This is Average Joe Finance's podcast, episode 26.
Success with money is about knowing your money, natural money temperament, managing your behavior, and then your money. And nowhere until I got into writing these books did I find anybody talking about this. It was always the traditional stuff. You got to have the right product. You got to understand what you're doing. It's all analytical. It's all rational mind stuff, which is wrong. Money is emotional.
If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you smash that like button and click subscribe. For those of you listening on a podcast platform, be sure to subscribe on whatever platform that is and leave us a rating if you can. The more likes, ratings, and subscriptions that we get, the more we can spread the message and grow our community. So we also have a free Facebook group. It's called the Average Joe Finances Network. Check us out, join the group, join the community, ask questions, and become a part of the team. All of our other social media accounts are listed in our flow page, and we have them in the video or podcast description below. Hey everyone, so in today's episode, I interviewed Ted McLyman. Ted is retired from the United States Marine Corps, but he's going to share with us his story as how he grew in the Marines and saw different decisions that people were making financially, both as service members and then even all the way up to the Pentagon, what some of our politicians were doing with financial policies. So this is really interesting stuff. You guys don't want to miss it. Check it out. Hey, how's it going, everybody? So today I have Ted McLyman on with us. Ted is an author, an entrepreneur, business owner, speaker, trainer. He's a retired lieutenant colonel from the United States Marine Corps, and he's an Ironman triathlete. What a background. That's pretty amazing. Over the past 30 years, he's had award-winning experience helping individuals and organizations achieve peak performance. So I'm really excited to have Ted on with us today. He can go more into his background as we get into it. But hey, Ted, thanks for joining us.
Mike, it is a pleasure. And I want to thank you for what you're doing. Financial independence for the average Joe. The level of financial literacy in the United States, in my opinion, is abysmal. And I think you're doing a wonderful job to fill that gap.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And, that's the whole point of this. The whole point of this podcast and this show is to just help open some people's eyes to something that they might not have thought about in the past. I know even for myself, just a couple of years ago, this is not something that would have been in the back of my mind when I was, getting paid and figuring out what to do with my money. Yeah. And I definitely appreciate everything you do. And thank you for your service as well. So,
well, and you too,
a lieutenant colonel, that's, an 05. It doesn't, it takes a little while to get there. So I know you did your time. So definitely appreciate that. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and share your story?
Well, sure. I had no intention of doing what I'm doing now. I grew up in central New York, where there's a lot of snow and cold and misery. Got into college primarily on a sports scholarship, graduated from Colgate University. And at that time, I knew I wanted to do something different. I wanted to get out of upstate New York. I wanted to see the world. My grandfather was a Marine. My dad was in the Navy. My father-in-law was in the Navy. I kind of knew I wanted to serve, but I had no intention of staying beyond 3 years. Well, you know how that works out. Marine Corps had the foresight after basic school to send me to Hawaii for my first duty station. And in Hawaii, I was introduced to primary colors, sunglasses, and sunscreen. Well, beyond that, it was the first time I really had the opportunity to see how money choices, particularly bad money choices, have an impact not only on my Marines and sailors, but people in general. I didn't come from an affluent family, didn't really come around money at all until I had some, oldest of 5, first person to graduate from college. And I didn't have a point of reference. And I was stationed at 12 Marines across the island from you at Kaneohe. And as a lieutenant, we get tagged to do things nobody else wants to do. So one of my jobs was to get involved with some of the young Marines and sailors that were making some bad financial decisions. And it was an eye awakener for me. I mean, I had a background from college with economics and finance and stuff like that, but I did not think I'd get out there and get in the middle of people's lives and find out that, number one, warranties are designed to break down 30 days on a deployment, that your wife will learn how to do auto mechanics because she has to. And the amount of money you have never seems to be enough when you're on active duty. And the new service with star cards and all that seems to be conspiring against you to take your money away from you. So you buy stuff you probably don't need and can't fit in your locker when you're deployed. So to make a long story short, I was involved with helping my folks make better money decisions. And in the process, I discovered that bad money choices caused performance issues, retention issues, security clearance issues, domestic problems, substance abuse. And I found it was incredibly tragic that somebody could destroy a career because they missed a shift at 7-Eleven because they had duty, and that extra $50 they didn't get that week was the tipping point for whether that family would eat. I don't know what it is now in Hawaii, but I had troops out living on the beach. I had troops sharing apartments. I had all kinds of crazy things go on. And you've been in the military. I've been in the military. All it takes is young Marines and sailors together to do crazy things. And that opened my eyes. So that's how I got started in all this.
That's a phenomenal way to get started. I mean, so right off the bat, you showed up and you saw a lot of the problems that your junior folks were having due to the poor financial decisions that they were making. A lot's changed over the years. And even from the time that I first joined over 18 years ago, when I joined, I enlisted first before I became an officer. And during my enlisted days, I joined the Navy as an E1. Back then, I had to live on the ship. There was no possibility of me living out in town or having
no quarters.
Yeah, right now they have like this, it's called private personnel ventures, where they'll give junior sailors BAH and stick them in a small apartment, and then they just collect the BAH back. It's similar to just regular housing.
Just a new opportunity to get in trouble with money.
True. But, it's now, a lot of these sailors are getting put out into these apartments, and all their roommates and neighbors are also junior sailors, junior Marines, and just junior armed forces personnel. Yep. And now we have extra duties where we have to go and a lot of times we have our E7 and above go through and do walkthroughs at night. Exactly. To make sure that there's nothing crazy going on, because
this is a PG broadcast. So I think we can't really get into some of the things we see at duty and driving over the poly to pull your folks out of Armed Forces HASC lockdown and decide whether you take them back to Kaneohe or Pearl Harbor. But the point is, and I think this drives it home, as a culture, we do a terrible job of teaching financial literacy. It's the only place I know where we just assume because you reach a certain age that you've got it figured out. Well, how's that working out? It's not at all. Most of the folks, and we're going to use the military here as most of our examples, because that's our background. And I'll fill in the blanks on how I got to where I am today as I went through my career. But, I didn't have a lot of money, and I made some stupid mistakes with my money as a lieutenant and even a captain. I mean, here's a great story. Got married en route to Hawaii, waiting for my wife to show up. I was at the end of the bar at the O Club. I know you find that hard to believe, in Kaneohe. I didn't have transportation, and I bought a car, sight unseen, stroked a check from a guy that was PCSing back to Kansas. My wife showed up and she said, "Where'd you get this thing?" Well, that was kind of the decision-making back then. I mean, I lived in the BOQ. I had more money that I knew what to do with, more than I ever had. I was in Hawaii. How hard could it be? And at that point, a long-term focus was probably what you were going to do on the weekend. That was what I was looking at. Well, it wasn't until I was promoted to captain, had a couple of commands, and I actually put in a letter to get out of the Marine Corps, and they turned me down. They said, "No, you're a regular officer. We're going to send you to Okinawa. You got to take that tour, but we'll take care of you when you get back." Well, you never know what that means. But they sent me to Pepperdine, where I got my first graduate degree. And my payback from Pepperdine was to teach economics at the Naval Academy. So I went to Quantico, got picked up, went over to the Naval Academy, and that was a shock in its own right, because it's one thing to take a course in economics, it's another one to teach it. Well, when I got the academy, what I found out is we had some of the sharpest young men and women in the country making incredibly stupid decisions with money. And we had nothing at the academy to teach it. And this is a situation where basically your college is being paid for, room and board, everything. I mean, you had to really screw up to get in trouble. And we started finding out that it got so bad that the fleet was sending bad letters back to us that we need to started doing an intervention to start teaching a little bit of financial literacy, because we had ensigns and lieutenants that were losing their commissions, that were losing their security clearances. We had young lieutenants driving a Corvette out of the academy on June week with a trailer hitch on the back, going to flight school with a new wife, not realizing that you don't get flight pay until you get your wings. So fundamentally, we found that this was a huge issue. And this is where I really started to develop my interest in not only financial literacy, but financial behavior. Why did smart people do dumb things with money? I mean, I was trained traditionally in economics that we're all rational people. Given enough information, you'll take a good decision. How hard can it be? People can figure it out. It's all based on data. Well, no, it does not work that way. I mean, you're in the money business, you do real estate. Real estate's an emotional buy. It is not a rational buy. Most of our spending is emotional. So from the Naval Academy, I had an opportunity to go up to headquarters of the Marine Corps, worked up there for the deputy of the Marine Corps. And I got into a situation there to build the Marine Corps' financial management school. You know, I got tagged. I was a major at that time. They said, why don't you go out and build that sucker? So I built the school, built the curriculum. And at that point, I found out I really didn't know much about any of that stuff from a technical point of view. And then I picked up another master's degree in instructional performance technology, which is how to build systems to improve human performance. From there, I did some normal Marine Corps things, whatever that means. A couple of pumps overseas, did Desert Storm, came back, ended up as an aide to the Secretary of the Navy for Financial Management. As an aide to the Secretary of the Navy for Financial Management as a lieutenant colonel, I found out that being a lieutenant colonel in the Marines in the field is different than being a lieutenant colonel in the Marines at the Pentagon. Okay, me and the gunner used together once a day and decide who's in charge that day, the other guy go run. But the point being, at that point, I worked a lot with the House and the Senate. I worked with budget people. I worked with people that are doing programs. And at that point, I found out that smart people at that level know nothing about money. And they bring their perspective and their biases to the table, spending your and my money as taxpayers on projects that are really too complex to really understand. Well, at that point, I knew I liked this. Had a feeling for it. When I retired, went into the business of becoming a financial advisor, independent financial advisor, built a couple of practices, both in the Washington, D.C. area, then down where I am now in Augusta, Georgia, sold those and started focusing on writing and really getting into money behavior. Wrote my first book in 2008 for that crash, trying to get my clients ready emotionally and behaviorally for money. And my latest book came out in right at the height of the COVID, which kind of screwed up the marketing. But my new book is Discover Your Money Temperament, a common sense guide to financial security. And what I wanted to do was write a real easy to understand book that is really based on the metaphor of going shopping at the mall to make people understand that success with money is about knowing your money, natural money temperament, managing your behavior, and then your money. And nowhere until I got into writing these books did I find anybody talking about this. It was always the traditional stuff. You got to have the right product. You got to understand what you're doing. You know, it's all analytical. It's all rational mind stuff, which is wrong. Money is emotional.
You know, it's funny when you lay out this whole background of, you know, you went from place to place to place, realizing that even the further you got up, you know, all the way up to the Pentagon and then working for the Secretary of the Navy, you're finding out that even people that are charged with the public's money are not good with money.
No,
right? So
not even a little bit.
but then again, I mean, all you have to do is watch a little bit of the news and you can figure that out pretty quick.
Oh yeah. Well, you know, people used to just shake their head. I mean, the Marine Corps is a footnote to the Navy's budget in a lot of areas, and we're a rounding error in most cases. And you're talking billions and billions of dollars. The point being is that our very inefficient human brains are not good at doing things necessary to deal with those big numbers, and those projects is just too complex.
Right.
Our brains are really designed to do two things really well: stay alive and pass on our genes. Doing taxes, reading the small print in your credit card, and figuring out the discount when you buy 5 instead of 6 is not something we're good at. As a result, we are hardwired not to make good money choices.
Yeah. And one of the things that you're talking about is just money temperament and money behavior. I've had financial coaches come on the show, and that's one of the things, one of them, talked about having, a healthy relationship with your money. I think if more individuals would treat their money differently, just
Right.
build that relationship and actually, pay attention to what you're using it on, care about it, don't just waste it and spend it frivolously, that you'll have a better understanding of what you're actually doing with your money. Once you're actually paying attention to where it's going, it can change your entire life and change how you spend, change your behaviors. It's about paying attention. But I know we're going to get into that. I want to talk a little bit about your books, right? So you've written a couple books. The one you most recently wrote, what was that
Yeah.
called?
Discover your money temperament.
Yes, so Discovering Your Money Temperament. Can you talk about that a little bit? What is money temperament?
Yeah, that's a good question. Now, again, as a Marine officer, as an economics instructor, and then as a financial advisor, licensed independent financial advisor, I spent years dealing with hundreds, maybe thousands of clients, prospects, and people through the years talking about money. Well, I was trained traditionally. And traditional means that we are rational people. We have complete information. Given the facts, we'll do the right thing. And when in doubt, do another spreadsheet. I mean, that's fundamentally what it comes down to. Traditional economics means that the rational man trumps the emotional man. But through my experience, I realized that that's not true at all. And I can go back to the meltdown in 2008, which was a behavioral meltdown. Well, I started writing about this. And I realized doing my research and the literature and my experience, not only as an advisor, but also as a teacher and coach, that there was a very little literature out there that talked about the behavioral piece. They kind of touched on it, but basically, I mean, there are literally millions of books out there on building a budget, how to track your finances, how to do investments, but they all talk about pretty much the same thing. It's tools, techniques, and activity. Seldom, if ever, do they get into the behavioral piece or emotion. And if they do, it's a one size fits all approach. And I found that this doesn't work. So I started doing the research, and money temperament is simply how you are naturally hardwired to work with money. It is your default option with money, which is how you feel and think with money, which manifests in your behavior: spender, saver, risk taker, risk adverse, maximizer, sufficer, delegator, do it yourself. And what I'm saying here is it's your natural wiring. It's a component of first our biology. As humans, we've got a few 100,000 years of behavioral evolution behind us that says we are emotional animals who think. We are not thinking animals with emotion. And money is 95 to 99% emotion. Most of our spending is non-conscious and automatic. When we force ourselves into a spending situation, we have to think about it. It actually hurts behaviorally. Our brains flash in different ways and we move. If I put you through an MRI or, you could see it. And we don't talk about this enough unless you do something wrong. It's like when you get dragged in to go see the master chief and he wants to know why you bounced a check and you don't even know what a check is. So we do things a little bit backwards, where it became obvious to me that the first thing you need to understand is humans are not hardwired to work well with money. We're hardwired to stay alive. We're social animals. We're emotional animals. It's the emotions and the hurting that kept us alive as a species. By default, we go to the number side. The people that really like the numbers tend to head to this industry like you and I do, but we're different we're not everybody's wired like we are. If everybody was wired like us, there would be no need for us, if that makes sense. So the first thing you need to understand is our biology is a huge component of our relationship with money. Next piece is our behavior. Our belief set. Our belief set is formed by mid-adolescence. By the time you get to middle school, you've pretty much designed or defined how you think and feel about money and your natural behavior. And it's kind of scary. Think where you were in middle school, what you liked and how you spent your money. You're still kind of wired like that right now. And it's not only our parents, but it's our peer group that makes that input. You can change that belief set, but it's hard. It's kind of like exercise and diet. And then the last piece is our culture. Our culture has a tremendous impact on what we think is important, what our values are, what our mores are, how you as a young E3 decided that you need a $60,000 pickup truck 6 months before you're on deployment, and it's going to be put in the yard someplace and rust. Okay. That's a very emotional statement. Or you come back on deployment, you got all this extra money, you just feel you got to get rid of it. And you do. And you can't wait to go on deployment again to pay the bills from the last deployment. What I talk about is not the technical stuff. The technical stuff is your responsibility. You're teaching people how to do the detailed stuff, differentiate different products and services. And I learned real early that there are a lot of people that are really good at that, like yourself. I wanted to get the front end, which is first determine what makes you tick with money. What is your natural money temperament? I don't care what it is. We're not judging, but you need to know what it is. And here's a little secret. If you're married, have a partner, or you're sharing money with somebody, they're probably wired differently than you are. And be good to figure that out before you get into a long spending relationship, because you will figure it out eventually. The other piece of this is there's a tremendous tendency in our culture to do just, again, I said the one size fits all approach. As an individual, you have to understand your capabilities and limitations, how you're wired, what you're good at, what you're not good at. I don't care if you're a spender or saver, but you need to know it. If you're a spender, you need to make it easy to save, hard to spend. If you're cheap and your family's suffering because you refuse to spend any money, you may need to make it easy to spend and a little bit more difficult or challenging to save. The key point here is either behavior is okay. It's the extremes that get you in trouble. So what I talk about, what I coach about, what I put in the book, and this is part one of the book, is biology, beliefs, and culture are the bedrock of your spending behavior. And then the last piece is the rules of money have changed. What we were doing when I was lieutenant is very different than when you were an ensign, definitely when you were a seaman. It's different, and it's changing daily. I don't carry cash anymore. Everything's digital. Everything's electronic. Where when I was commissioned, I didn't even qualify for a credit card. So it's a different world. The other thing you have to keep in mind is information moves instantaneously. With following you and the things you're talking about, let's just talk about the real estate market in Hawaii. It used to be Hawaii was literally an island to its own self, and you didn't really know what was going on out there unless you went for vacation or you stopped for a port call or you were stationed there. And the rest of the world could have been was literally miles and miles and hours away. Not anymore. Something can happen on the other side of the world that has an impact on your pocketbook and you don't even know it. So the good news is you've got a lot of access to information, but information is not knowledge and wisdom. The other piece is when I was as a financial advisor a few years back, I had some buffer when something would hit the news or something happened on the other side of the world that we could react and we could do things. We don't have that luxury anymore. The reality is you need to look at money differently. You have to look at it through the filter of your money temperament, and then pick and choose products and services that complement your temperament, work with you, not against you. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. There's a lot to unravel here. So I was sitting here jotting down notes as you were going. One thing that you said that is just spot on, 100%, is information is instant now, right? Right at our fingertips with these things right here. This is like a powerful computer. Each one of these smartphones, some of them are even better than most laptops, right?
Hey, it's more powerful than the first ship you were on.
Yeah, right. Just the capabilities that everyone has just in the palm of their hands or in their pocket at any given time. Information can be spread instantaneously, like you said. I want to touch a little bit about how you were explaining money temperament, right? Because I think this is a key thing, right? And I didn't really think about it this way until you said something about it. And I think this is a really good point. And how money temperament is how us as individuals, how we're hardwired with our money behaviors, right?
Yes.
The way I grew up on Long Island, New York, my father did quite well at first, right? He was doing very good with his own personal business. There wasn't much that I could ask for that he would ever say no to, right?
Okay.
And then there came a point, after September 11th, he was doing air freight, right? So there came a point after September 11th that his business just took a huge hit. And when you lose 80% of your income, life changes very fast.
Yeah, radically.
Yeah, so he sold his house and everything. Now, shortly after this, I had joined the Navy and I had left. I actually went home on leave to help my family move, and they moved to a nicer area, but they were able to sell their house that was essentially almost paid down at that point. That's what they were living off of to survive, right? Was selling that house and then, the little bit of money that they were making after that. What I'm saying is the problem is that the spending habits never changed, right?
Yes.
So that there was never, I guess, a chance for him to identify how he spends his money. Now, I only bring this up because that trickled down to me. I grew up a spender. I'm
Right.
still a spender. And
Okay.
something else that you pointed out that I think is just fantastic is that if you're married or have a partner, they can be hardwired completely different than you. And that is 100% the truth, because my wife is 100% wired differently. She's a
Yes.
saver.
Okay.
So the two of us together, like when we sit down and we look at our budget, you see the sparks, like just the
Oh,
light
yeah.
go
Yeah.
between our foreheads as we're trying to figure out what we're going to do. I have now changed my mindset on, instead of buying things, all the time that I want, there's certain things I need to do first. There's certain things I need to spend my money on first. And that is paying myself, right? So
Yes.
now each paycheck we get paid, we have sinking funds, right? So the money has to go into the sinking funds to the different accounts that we have. So we have our
Absolutely.
holiday
Yeah.
funds, right? So
Yep.
so right now, like, we're doing all the Christmas shopping and there's no issues because we already knew how much we were going to spend. We built
Yep.
the budget at the beginning of the year, and the money's there because throughout the entire year we paid that bill, right? And then same thing, car and house fund, that's our emergency fund.
Right.
Have a fund for the vet because we have a cat and a dog. So we make sure we have money in there, put these money to these different funds. And then I pay my investments, right? So I want to, invest this much money each month. We split it up into the different things that we invest in. So I have a joint investment account that I actually go through a financial advisor with. I have my variable index fund life insurance policies that
Mhm.
I invest in. And then I've got, money that I put to the side to buy real estate. Changing my mindset to spend my money that way. I'm still spending my money. I still get to, go get these different things, but now it's in a spot where it's securing our future. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? So I'm still a spender. I'm still hardwired
Oh,
that
yeah.
way.
You always will be.
I got to change how I'm looking at what I'm spending my money on.
Yeah,
So,
Mike, that is a great example of how you on your own discovered your money temperament. You didn't call it what I call it, and you probably didn't know exactly what was going on in that respect. You figured it out. Now, in our culture, in most cases, that's how you do it. It's a very dog eat dog, but Darwinian process of, you either figure it out or you don't. Most people
right.
make some real mistakes on the way, and then hopefully they get their act
I
together.
have.
Yeah, before it's too late and things are going well. But you have a classic example of some things you've done that I would recommend to a spender. Number one, realize it, that you get emotional satisfaction out of spending money. And here's a
Absolutely.
cue. There's nothing wrong with that. Nothing. It simply means that you take proactive steps up front to build those things you have to build to give you the kind of lifestyle and financial security you need in the future. We also know as humans, long-term planning is not a strong suit. That when we force ourselves to go from I call it the feeling brain, which is our primitive brain, to our thinking brain, which is the modern brain, it actually hurts emotionally. Our brains are designed to stay comfortable in our feeling brain. We spend most of our time there, and that's our default. You don't even think about it. It's like when you're driving on, to the base, that you drive some days and you got there, but you really don't know how you got there. You didn't think about the turn by turn things or the light it just kind of happened and you go, oh yeah, I'm here. Unless there's an interrupt someplace like a siren, a light, an accident or something like that, you're not aware of it. That's our brain on money. That's our brain on life. Our brain is not a computer. It's an associative brain. It's an emotional brain. Most of our brain is non-conscious, feeling, emotional stuff. But what I tell people, you have to have a situational awareness. When things are consequential, when they're important, you have to stop, count to 5 and say, wow, this is important stuff. And I know it's going to be emotionally uncomfortable to spend a day and a half to do a couple of spreadsheets, to look at some stuff I don't like looking at, to do some things I don't necessarily want to do because I know the long run I'm going to be better for it. And that's the discipline. And the best example I can use is exercise. I'm a triathlete. Okay, let's use that as an example. There are a lot of ways to lose weight, and there are a lot of ways to get in shape. Doing triathlons is one of the many, many options. That works for me because of the way I'm wired emotionally. My feeling brain likes that stuff. I like but I'm not going to try to impose my way of working out on somebody else. That would not make any sense. Even though I could write a book on it, I could have my own following. It's a one size fits Ted. It's not a one size fits everybody. It's the same approach with money. However, it doesn't mean it's a free-for-all. You still have to have some structure. You still have to do some things. Let's talk about budget drills. Every financial book I've ever read, any financial firm I've worked with, there's some kind of mechanism to collect spending behavior. You call it a budget, you call it whatever it is. Well, here's an example of why most people don't like go to financial advisors, because you come in, you sit down with somebody like me or somebody like yourself, and we get all this analytical information, and then we give you a document that's 1.5 inches thick with 8-point type or font that's got 550 blocks in there. And I want you to fill all this stuff in, and I want you to track all your spending for the next 30 days. Well, this is the way it generally works. Wow, I'm excited. I like the guy. We're finally going to get our act together. Things are going to be great. And we're going to have that house we just talked about. Okay, first day is pretty good. Second day, you miss a little bit. Third day, where is that sheet of paper? Fourth day, we're never going back. Because we didn't design a tool or intervention, if you will, that works for you the way you process information and the way you manage money. So when I started watching this with my client, that's where I developed the second part of the book, which is called the Money Behavior System. And that's a system I put together that helped my clients make better money decisions by starting with behavior. And I've got a whole process that you go through to help you make better money choices.
That's essentially the right way to go into that next step, because a lot of times, and again, I get into my personal life here,
right?
You know, when you're making these decisions, you know, when you first start off, the motivation's there. You want to do it, especially when you worked with someone else and you feel like, okay, there's someone else involved here now. I got to hold myself accountable because someone's watching.
Yeah,
right. So that's why, you know, when you were talking about like on that first day, like, okay, they're, you know, nailing it. You know, we tracked everything that we spent. The second day, you know, maybe missed a little bit. Third day, oh, where'd that sheet go? Makes perfect sense, right? Because you start to forget about that conversation that you had 3 days ago. You're setting yourself back in your own ways because you never changed your actual behavior or your mindset or how you look at money, right? So I think that's fantastic. And you said, so the next part of your book is called the Money Behavior System. So I'd like to like kind of dive into that. And how does somebody build this system to help them change their own behavior?
And I put this together because I got very frustrated as a licensed financial advisor, independent advisor, fiduciary, working with people and giving them great information. It wasn't going anywhere because I was giving the school book solution. And any you in the Navy or the Marine Corps know what I mean by that. This works everywhere except for the ship I'm on, you know, and it's just kind of the standard approach to getting stuff done. And if you deviate from it, you know, there's very little flexibility. Well, what I found is the school book solution that we're using in most financial situation was too general and not designed to be tied to somebody's natural temperament. So I sat down and I said, let's also look at a couple other things. And most financial planning begins with a goal setting session. Well, goal setting in most places is what's the stuff you want? When do you want it? How much money you got? I'll do a quick little present value, future value math. And if you give me $500 a month here in 30 years, you can have that house out on the North Shore. That's simple. How hard can it be? Well, there are a few steps in between, but that's the standard approach. And I said, we've got to go deeper than that. And you being in real estate, I think you'll really appreciate this.
Let's take a quick break from today's episode to hear from our show sponsors. Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Mike Cav from Average Joe Finances. Just want to talk to you today about Prep Agent. If you're interested in learning how to become a real estate agent and being able to pass the test on your first try, check out Prep Agent. Check out the link below in the show notes or in the video description. Hey everybody, how's it going? This is Mike Cav with Average Joe Finances. You know, we're living in some pretty tough times right now, and if you don't have life insurance, you should probably get it. You need to protect yourself, protect your family, and protect what you own. Check out the link below in the show notes or in the video description. Welcome back, everybody. Let's get back into it.
First thing I said is I really accept the fact that we're emotional with money, that all money decisions are emotional. Even the most analytical, card-carrying chief or warrant officer that crunches numbers for a living does it emotionally. They just don't know it and they won't admit it. So first thing I wanted to ask is let's have a discussion about what is important about money to you. Now, let me say that again. And this is different than what do you want? What's important about money to you is a value discussion. And I want to take you through that discussion to the point that there's nothing more important about X to you. You're in real estate. Let me give you an example. The realtors I work with, and I work with a lot of realtors on the behavioral piece, they get hung up on stuff. Do you want a blue house or a red house? Do you want gray walls? Do you want, whatever? And it's superficial. What the question should be is, what's important about a house to you? Well, I want a comfortable place to live. What's important about a comfortable place? It needs to be safe. Why is it important to be safe to you? Because I have a young family. Why with a young family is it important to be safe? Because I'm deployed 4 to 6 months out of the year, and it has to be blah, 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 blah. What's important about safety to you and your family? Nothing is more important about that to me and keeping my family safe when I'm deployed. Well, that's a completely different discussion. Or do you want a townhouse or do you want a Rambler? It's, I need a place that's safe. Now, then it is, I need access to good schools. What's important about good schools? I want my kids to have the opportunity I didn't have. What's important to that? Well, I really don't want them to come back and live in my basement in 30 years. You know what I mean? But the point I'm trying to say here is we want to take you to the point that this is the most important thing in your life that is going to cause emotional pain if it doesn't happen, and it's going to cost money. And for most people, it has to do with safety, security, legacy. It's usually not about stuff. And I think with your dad's a good example. He had a great business, and really what was important to him was not the business and the money. It was taking care of the family and the security and the legacy and leaving that kind of stuff in good order. But most people I know have never had that conversation. Most financial advisors never had that conversation. And that little thing about really sitting down and walking through the chunking, if you will, of what's important about this to you. And once you get to the point, I can't say there's any more than that. That's what's important to you emotionally. That's the tag we need to go with. And if I can help you have that, which is a modest, comfortable home in a safe location with good schools that you can afford to allow you to put money aside so that when you retire, you have the option and flexibility to do other things with your life. Is that what you're really looking for? Yeah, that's a lot different than I got this place I got to unload on the North Shore. Let's go look at it. So the first part is what is important about money to you. The next piece is your money temperament. Money temperament is simply how are you naturally wired for money? How do you feel and think about money? And I have a drill I go through, but basically on a scale from 1 to 10, are you a spender saver? You maximizer sufficer? And I don't care what it is, but I want to benchmark what your instinctive behavior is with money. And I don't care what it is. We're not judging, because one of the most frustrating things I know about most financial coaching and most financial advisors, I want to change your behavior. Well, that generally doesn't work out well. I need to identify the behavior, then I need to be your accountability coach to hold you accountable to what you're doing and how you're spending so you can have what is most important to you. Next piece is money knowledge. Now, money knowledge, yes, it's technical knowledge, but it's more than that. It's how do you process information? How do you learn? Are you a visual learner? Are you an auditory learner? Are you verbal? Are you a digital tactile, meaning do you like the numbers? Because how you process information is how you're going to take in the information. And money by its very nature is driven by data. And a lot of people are not data people. And think about when you go to a house closing, you go through this emotional drill, sometimes for weeks, finding people the right house and the right place and it's beautiful and they're emotionally tied to it. And then you go to the close and some attorney walks in and he's got 3 inches of documentation, which is legalese. And basically what he's trying to say is basically, Mike, I think Mike is a thief and he's a criminal because he's going to try to sell you a house you can either afford or you should be in. And all this documentation is this. And by the way, everybody around you is trying to rip you off. And that's what this is all about. And we're going to take an hour and a half to go through this. I'm going to scare the crap out of you. But at the end of the day, I'm going to give you a pen. You're going to be very comfortable. You made a good decision. Okay. I'm being a bit facetious, but what I'm saying is that in a lot of cases, there's a fundamental disconnect to the way we like to take in information and the way information is presented. Verbal people, visual people, and auditory people do not do well with a 2-inch, 3-inch pile of paper and closing, and it's all numbers. That's all I'm saying there. So here we go. You've got your values. This is most important. This is the codifying value I have in life, and this is what it's going to cost to make it happen. And I don't care where it is, and this can change over time. Number 2, this is how I'm naturally wired with money. I accept it. Okay, I know what I'm good at. I know what I'm bad at. I know the parameters. One size fits all doesn't work. I want a one size fits me. This is how I like to process information, which means during a presentation, I get to stop and say, hey, wait. Before you bring out another spreadsheet, put it in a graphic form. Show me a picture. Wait a minute. Walk me through this. Speak to me. Hey, let me see this because I want to go through it myself. It's just the way you're wired. Then the next piece is once I understand that, and incidentally, what I just went over is what's missing in 99% of financial plans, financial encounters, and working with a wealth coach. The next piece is what's my strategy? Your financial strategy is the 30,000-foot view of where you want to be, how you want to get there, your disposable income. It's fluid, but it basically has to reflect, number one, your values. Your values drive your strategy. Your strategy supports your values. Once I have the strategy, then I go in and build my money plan. My money plan is the how-to. That is the products and services and activity I need to do to be sure that I'm on track to satisfy what is important to me about money in a way that I process information that supports how I naturally behave with money. And if you do that, you have a higher probability to be successful as opposed to, hey, take this, sign here, press hard, third copy here, give me a call. Hey, we're going to do an allotment. Life is going to be okay. Trust me.
That is a lot to unpack, Ted. But I think the steps that you lay out, it just provides anybody a good formula, a good way to move forward. And one of the things that you had mentioned is, how do you learn? What is, are you a visual learner, verbal, or are you just a data cruncher? I get it. Yeah. So, when you're sitting there at a closing, it could be intimidating when you sit there and you have that giant stack of closing documents, sell your life away, right? Is
Right.
I guess one way to put it. As you sit down and you get everything explained to you, you get put more at ease, more at comfort. But as you're going through the forms, if you're actually sit there and read it like I did for my first couple, sometimes it can be intimidating with just the language that's in those documents, right? Yeah, I wanted to touch a little bit on that, on how people learn, because if you don't know your learning style, you can't really get the information explained to you in the right manner to where you're actually absorb it, right? And I think that's one of the things you're talking about when you were talking about how somebody bringing you a presentation and you said, hey, I want to see a graph with that, or I'd like to go through it with you because I'd like to read through it once. Things like that is very important. I know in my current position, so I'm an executive officer, right? So I get a lot of paperwork that comes through my desk. And
yes, you do.
training and all that other stuff and different things that I have to do or presentations that I have to give that other people prepare. So I'm sitting here looking through it. And if there's things I want to change, I have to really go through these documents with a fine tooth and comb to find the stuff that needs to be changed to get it to where I'm comfortable doing it. Right.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
it's just a matter of making sure that, you understand what it is you need, what tools are required for you to move forward.
And when I wrote the book, I particularly made it very easy. There's no math, there are no pictures, no graphs. I don't talk about financial products. I don't talk about the stock market. I talk about behavior. And the whole book is based on putting you in a position that you're following yourself on a trip back and forth to the mall, and we talk about your spending behavior. So in that respect, the book itself is designed, I think, as your manual to become a better spender, a better chooser when it comes to money decisions. And to keep it real simple, if you want to know what your values are, break out your calendar and break out your bank statement. Where you're spending your money and where you're spending your time are your dominant values. And I don't care what it is. If it's golf, it's golf. But if you're making $5,000 a month and you're spending $4,000 on golf, that's not sustainable. I'm not going to say it's right or wrong, but it's not sustainable. But the point is that most people don't even know that. What we often have is the goal set that we think we should have: retirement, house, college, and something else. Okay. Those are the big three. Well, they may not fit you, that cookie cutter approach. May not reflect how you're really wired and how you behave with money. I don't care what it is. You can be a golfer, but you don't need custom made titanium clubs. If you're shooting 106, you need a coach. You know what I mean? So put it in perspective. I love working with people, young troops getting their first car in the military. You don't need a $40,000 automobile if you're an E3. You can't even afford the insurance, say nothing of the payments. And if you're taking an 84-month lease or car payment, you're going to be out of the service most likely before that thing's even paid for.
It's a mortgage.
Exactly.
It's a mortgage on a car.
So what we don't do, and you've got to understand that the modern economy conspires against your biology, your beliefs, and your culture. The way you're wired with money conspires against your money temperament when you're making decisions. You go over to Ala Moana, you go downtown. Okay, you head into Honolulu. Honolulu is designed to separate you from your money. You know that. Yeah. I know that. Okay, I don't.
That's why we don't go there that often.
Well, that's right. You go and you have a visiting dignitary coming in. You got to take him to the luau. You've got to go to the North Shore. There are a couple things you have to do. Okay, but you've got money set aside for that. The point being is know yourself, know your temperament, manage your behavior. Once that is under control, the money is actually very, very easy, because if the values are strong enough, your money values, the why, and you understand what the mechanism that makes you move in that direction, it's pretty easy to say, I think I need an allotment to my savings account. Cool. I think I need to have some life insurance. Yeah, what flavor? Well, I'm going to go find out. If I really want to take the family home for Christmas to go back to Long Island to see the family, that's going to take a couple of bucks. Maybe we need to get off the island fund, that kind of stuff. And those discussions become a lot easier than, hey, I can get 2 tickets, space A, to go to San Francisco. Let's go there, spend 10 days, burn up some leave, and then come back. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't see there's any problem with that at all.
Yeah, absolutely. And you said it, the key word I was looking for is what is your why? You can discover that as you're going through these steps and you discover what your why is. Now that you know how you spend your money and why you're wired the way that you are, you can really attack that why. So yeah. I think that's phenomenal, because it makes me think about my own personal journey about how, before I came to Hawaii, before I even had orders here, I was over $26,000 in credit card debt.
There you go. Well, you're a good American.
Yeah. So my wife and I, we really sat down, we hunkered down on a budget. We figured out, and again, like you said, I didn't even know that I was doing it this way, but we sat down. I figured out that I know what my problem was, is that I like to spend, right? I had to take a step back and really realize, like, when we looked at our bank statements and we looked at what we were spending our money on, or when we went out to eat and everything like that, our expenses for living were a lot higher based off of going out to eat and everything else. So I was spending more money going out to eat than I was on groceries, for one, almost as much as what my BAH was, which was insane. Completely changing that mindset within a 2-year span. We not only paid off that $26,000, but we really got disciplined. And by the time we moved to Hawaii, after that 2 years was up, we had $40,000 in the bank.
Oh, that's tremendous.
When we came out here to buy a house, we found the house we wanted, and we knew that we wanted to do renovations on it. We had the cash to do it. It's taking these steps and finding out what it is that you do. And again, like you said, I didn't even know that's what it was. So I definitely, I can't wait to crack open your book and check it out, because it's going to sing to me.
A must read for all junior troops and young officers, and because we don't get this stuff,
and more senior folks too. I'm telling you.
Well, yeah,
we've even got some senior folks that I personally know that are not that great with their finances, and
they're just as broke. They just have nicer stuff they can't afford.
Right.
And you bring up a really good point. The nice thing about the military is you do have security, and if you retire, that buffer is amazing. The downside is I can take a look at a chart and I can tell you what you're worth for the next 20 years, not adjusted for inflation. That doesn't change. So how hard you work does not influence that at all. You just kind of survive and move through it. So the reality is, where I saw a lot of people get in trouble on active duty with money was during a promotion. In a big one, once you make, let's say E7, E8, that's a big jump. 03 to 04 is a big jump. And there's some significant points in your career when there's a lot of money. And the tendency is to spend the money on selection, not promotion. And you know exactly what I mean. There might be 18 months between selection and actually pinning them on, but you've already spent the money. You're already living the lifestyle. The rule of thumb I always used to give my guys was spend half, save half, or invest half. So every promotion you have, every major one, because some of these are pretty significant. Let's say you get $1,000 a month because it's a pretty major bump, new duty station, all that. Instead of spending $1,100, which a lot of people do, spend $500. But $500 goes to X, paying down debt, travel fund, short-term, long-term emergency needs, investments, something along those lines. And the irony is your brain does not differentiate between a $500 increase in lifestyle and $1,000 increase in lifestyle. It just feels we got more.
Right.
So it's better to be the most successful guy on the block in a medium price housing area than the lowest income guy in a place you can't afford and you're just trying to keep up with everybody. That's a challenge. And I saw that all the time on active duty. It even become more of a problem if you're continually going back and forth between San Diego and Hawaii. High income area to high income area to high income area to high income area with a couple of schools in between. That can be a challenge.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, part of that is discipline. I haven't bought a new car since 2006 when I was in E5.
Yeah.
Right. Bought nothing but used cars. I'm going to buy my first new car for the first time in 2022.
All right.
And it's going to be my retirement present. Going to get a Tesla Cybertruck. I already pre-ordered it.
Nice. Nice. Now that's probably a decent vehicle for over there.
But that's going to be my retirement gift and, starting my next journey in this leg of life. But I see a lot of people like they'll get a promotion or something like that. And next thing you know, they got a new BMW or a new Mercedes or something.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm talking about like E5s, E6s. And I'm like, guys, what are you doing?
I was a commander at one place. And at the time I was driving a Ford Escort. It was such an expensive vehicle that I put the sunroof in with a saber saw that one of my troops came out one day and said, "Sir, why don't we let Sergeant so-and-so park his car here because your car is just embarrassing." And I said, "Yeah, let's talk." But I'm with you about that. I buy used cars. I get called all the time Ted, you need to have a vehicle that reflects your station in life. I go, well, what is my station in life? I'm driving a 2008 used Mercury Mariner with 140,000 miles on it. Just put new tires on it, and it's got a tune-up, and it will probably go for a lot longer. So I don't get into that. Now that's not the car my wife drives, but she now has a 5-year-old, newer car. That's okay. We understand it, but not having a car payment, which used to be as large, today a car payment could easily be as high as it could be more than you're paying for a house. You can buy a house for 30 years, a decent house for less than you pay in a 5-year car note.
Absolutely.
It's crazy. But we don't talk about this stuff. We don't think about this, and our brain hurts when we talk about that because what the brain sees is dopamine. Dopamine is that feel-good drug that's pumping through our veins. It's the anticipation. You say, man, I see that car. I smell that car. I'm driving that car. I built it online 5 times. You finally buy it. You drive through the housing area at 5 miles an hour so everybody can see it. You wax it, you wash it every weekend for the first 4 months, then every other month, then not so much. Then you take it out of the lot after a deployment. It doesn't look quite the same. It doesn't smell quite the same, and it never is the same, but you're still paying for it.
That'll be me in about 2 years, but minus the deployment part.
There you go.
Hey, so I'm really enjoying this discussion, Ted. You're putting out some great information. I've been just scribbling down all these notes as we talk, and I got to say, I'm really enjoying myself. I want to talk a little bit about you, if we can, for a second.
Yeah.
Throughout all these years, during your time in the Marine Corps, going from duty station to duty station, seeing the different things that you've seen, all the way up until the time you got up into DC and seeing what you saw working for the SecNav with how poor people are with their own money. And then, you retired from the Marine Corps, you became a fiduciary, and, you're seeing firsthand these decisions that people are making in their own personal lives, and that the cookie cutter way of doing things just didn't work. So what did you do in your own personal life to get yourself on this journey to financial independence?
Made a lot of stupid mistakes. My situation was I was overconfident in a lot of cases. I just, I got into this stuff. I knew stuff. I don't spend a lot of money, but when I do spend money, I spend it on nice stuff, but I keep it forever. I'm an entrepreneur at heart. I am incredibly comfortable with risk and money risk, business risk. And I enjoy that piece of it, which drives my wife out of her freaking mind. So I don't mind going
we're the same here.
Oh yeah. I don't mind going into a venture knowing I'm going to lose some money and it might work and might not. Probably the most important thing I did was my wife kept a logbook of every stupid mistake I've made over the long years we've been married. And from time to time, she breaks it up and reinforces that sometimes I get ahead of my skis with money. Where it really came to a head for me, though, honestly, was I was a captain, just came out of graduate school. at Pepperdine, was going to Quantico and then in the Naval Academy. And I was watching who was going there, and I had this real epiphany that if I'm going to have the things I really want and think I deserve, I've got to change my behavior. And what I did was I went into, saw a financial advisor, worked with a coach and a professional, did the things I knew intuitively had to be done and I knew intellectually had to be done, and it worked out fine. And that left me in a position that I could now focus on what I'm doing now, to get the knowledge and experience, to figure out how to leverage what I picked up in the Marine Corps into civilian life. I've started a couple of businesses. I've sold them. I've got 3 really exciting things going on. I've reinvented myself probably 4 or 5 times in my life, but all in the same general focus of helping people make better choices, enhancing human performance, but figuring out how I can be compensated for doing that with changes in technology, culture. And to give you an example, at one time I had a 5,000 square foot building, brick and mortar, with 35 people in it. We're crunching numbers, doing financial planning. That was my shop. My electric bill was more than I'd pay for my house, my car, and my wife's car. Okay, wow. Give you an idea of the cost of making that happen. My reach at that time, because it was a traditional brick and mortar building, was how far you could drive in a day to see a client. Now I'm by myself. It's all electronic. I have an international reach and scale. I have partners that I met online and associates that I have never physically met, and we're building businesses. It's a wonderful time to be doing this.
Isn't that amazing?
Oh yeah.
With what technology has done for us.
Oh yeah. I mean, I could see just for you and I talking that once we're through this thing, there's some things we can do and collaborate and whatever, because we can do it electronically.
Absolutely.
Where 10 years ago, we wouldn't know we existed. So I'm doing more. I'm impacting people more. It's more fun at lower cost with a higher rate of return. And if I have never have another employee again, that's fine. If I never have another brick and mortar business facility, that's fine. And if I never have another encumbering lease on a copier or any of that stuff, that's fine. And I'm doing more, having more fun, helping more people. My job right now is to change the world and how people think and feel about money. I want to change the dialogue. Money is about money temperament and managing behavior. Once you figure that out, which is 80% of the battle, the other 20% is getting the stuff. And as soon as people start understanding that, and I want to build an army of people that want to do the same thing, to say, okay, what are we doing? What are we doing? I mean, you're going to get into real estate. What I'm talking about is ideally designed for real estate, because that is an emotional purchase, highly emotional. And if that person comes in and said they want a planaria tree in the front yard because their grandmother had, you better go find one and put it in the front yard and not fight with them because you don't like planaria trees. It's their house. It's their dream. It's their emotions. But on the other hand, emotions run wild will make you broke. What I would say is what most people think and know about money is making them broke, and they don't even know it.
Got to get those emotions in check. 100%. Ted, this has been phenomenal. I really like just the dialogue that we have here, the two of us just having this conversation, you sharing your story, everything that you've done throughout your time, both in the Marine Corps and what you've done afterwards, and even what you're doing now. You were able to take what you did with these larger businesses that you had, right? You said you had 35 employees at one point in a 5,000 square foot building. I can imagine what that electric bill was, could have been, right? So, and then taking that, selling that off, and then now doing what you're doing as a solo entrepreneur right now, using technology to your advantage. What's your real overhead cost right now while you're doing this? It's not much. Getting a much higher rate of return. Phenomenal.
Well, the other piece is you get to meet people like yourself that I can tell this is clicking. And I love finding people like yourselves that get it.
Yeah.
People ask me what I do for a living. I help people who get it get more. That's what I do for a living.
Love it.
And if you don't get it, I don't have to spend a lot of time with you. I'll be polite, but I'm moving on. If you get it, we figure out how to collaborate, work together, partner, leverage each other, and everybody benefits. That's the name of the game today.
Absolutely. So it's been an absolute pleasure. I would like to ask you though, where can people find more information about you? Do you have a website or social media?
Yeah, right over my corner, you should see tedmclyman.com, or it says Ted McLyman, put a .com in the bottom. tedmclyman.com is my hub, if you will. You can get into all the different things I'm interested in, off there, but fundamentally you'll get information on the book. There's some good videos. I also have a learning platform called Pathfinder Coaches, where we offer courses and classes and things like that. Matter of fact, you go to the website, I have a free course that's on the book and it'll get you started there. I also have some courses online on how to build your own money temperament roadmap. And it's just fun, but you've got to take the first step. And I tell everybody, read the book.
That's the first step right there then. So read the book. I am definitely getting myself a copy. Where can people find a copy of your book?
Amazon's the best place. If you just go to Amazon and type in my last name, or you can go to the website. There's a link off the website. It's available as a Kindle book, a soft cover, and a hardcover. I generally recommend you get the softer hardcover because it's designed that you can take notes on it. You should take notes on it and highlight it. And here's a quick little tip you never have thought about. If you're going to make a consequential spending choice and you're on a way to make it, you take a copy of this book and you throw it on the seat next to you, it will be amazing how just knowing that book is within arm reach, it will impact your spending behavior.
It's almost like having a Ted in your pocket there to hold you accountable on your spending.
Yeah.
So awesome. Exactly. So I'll make sure I have a link to your website, as well as a link to where people can purchase the book in the show notes, as well as your coaching website too. So Ted, hey, absolute pleasure having you on today.
Mike, my pleasure. And again, I envy you for where you are. That is our favorite place in the world. And Nashville, Tennessee is not quite the same.